There is no death, only a change of worlds. That's an old Native American quote that my grandmother taught me back when I was a kid. I don't remember who said it, but that's what got me interested in ghosts, spirits, and things of that sort. My grandmother, on my mother's side, is a very spiritual woman, always holding seances, talking with the spirits, burning candles, things like that. I learned most of what I know about the spirit world from her. She just turned 92 this year and has more energy than most 20-year-olds I know. That scares me sometimes. Anyway, hi, my name is Lily Sweetwater, and yeah, I am Native American, half Cherokee, on my father's side. My father, DeWitty, meaning David in English, is a 100% full-blooded Native American. My mother, Shannon, meaning Shannon in English, is a 100% full-blooded African American. That's a family joke. It's okay if you don't get it. I also have a brother, Somus, meaning Thomas in English. He's a few years older than me, 6 to be exact. He chose to stay and live on the reservation along with my parents, about an hour away from where I live now. He's a deputy on the reservation's police force. They have a saying, what happens on the res, stays on the res. And they mean it. The laws are different there. All right, now, for those of you that don't know what a reservation is a piece of land managed by a federally recognized Native American tribe, such as the Cherokee, Cheyenne, etc., rather than being managed by the state for which it's located in. There's about 326 reservations in the United States, give or take, mostly located in the western part of the country. The reservation I'm from is a Cherokee reservation. All right, back to the story. Where was I? Oh, yeah. When I turned 18, I'm 32 now, I decided that I wanted to see what life was like off the reservation. So, I went to my parents and asked their permission to leave the reservation and live on my own. They agreed under one condition: I don't leave the state. That seemed kind of odd, but it's a fairly big state, so okay. I agreed to that condition. I'd been saving my tips and wages working as a waitress at the Red Horse Bar. That's a bar on the res. Alright, I know many of you are probably thinking since I was only 18, there's no way I could work there. But since it was a reservation, and not governed by the state, the drinking age is 16, which allowed me to work there. Anyway, I had a pretty good amount saved up. So, I packed up what little belongings I had and moved out. I had to quit my job. Since I was moving off the reservation, I couldn't work there anymore. Reservation law says, if you don't live there, you can't work there. My brother gave me a ride. We drove for a while until I saw a sign that said, room for rent. He stopped, and I got out to speak to the homeowner. I rented a small basement apartment from a nice lady named Candy, and I've lived there ever since. You remember Candy, right? She has a very friendly and very big dog named Buster, but that's a different story. Candy and I get along great. When I first moved in, she knew I was looking for a job and offered me a cashier position at the grocery store where she worked at. Well, when it opened back up, that is. Some place called Barnaby's. A very old store, as she put it. Apparently, they had a sewer pipe break a while ago, and the whole place had to be gutted. But that's a different story. I gladly accepted the job. She said that they had just about had it finished, and that it should be open in about a month or so. She also said that I'd have to meet the owner, Pat, as he likes to meet all the new hires personally. She called Pat and set up a meeting for the next day at 1 p.m. That meeting would change my life in Barnaby's forever. The next day came. I got up, showered, and got dressed in a nice pair of jeans and a blouse, ready for my meeting with Pat. and Candy was sitting at her computer, wearing a pair of leggings with smiley faces on them and a white t-shirt that read, Operation Insomnia on it. We hopped in her van, as I didn't have a car yet, and made our way to the store. I asked Candy if we could stop at the coffee shop across the street from the store for some coffee. Real coffee. Not that mocha choca frappa kappa crap. Actual brewed coffee. I told her that I'd buy, and she agreed. Candy got an energy drink, and I got an extra large black coffee. The cashier really creeped me out. She had these really weird-looking green eyes. We got our drinks and got the heck out of there. We arrived at the store shortly after. Now, Candy was not kidding when she said that Barnaby's is a very old store. It's a decent size, all-brick building. There's no big glass picture window in the front of the store like the big-name stores have. There are, what looks like, 2 house windows on either side of a wooden door and painted white with the paint peeling off. There are no other windows in the whole place. However, there is a rather large room off the back of the store with its own entrance door. You can tell that it's an add-on, as it has aluminum siding rather than being brick. We walked inside. The air was thick and heavy. I could tell something was going on there. An older gentleman walked up to Candy and gave her a hug. They talked for a few minutes about how everything was going with the store. I overheard the name Donovan Mitchell. Apparently, he works for the governor of the state, and he convinced him to declare Barnaby's a historical landmark because of its history and all. Therefore, it can never be torn down. Barnaby's will live forever, I heard Pat say. He also said that the state pitched in the rest of the money that it would take to complete the renovations. A loud bang was then heard throughout the store. Candy, the man, and everyone else turned to look in the direction of the sound. Not again, I heard him whisper to himself. Suddenly, one of the guys up on a scaffold doing drywall yelled out, "It's okay, everyone. I just dropped my drill. Nothing to worry about." Everyone sighed in relief. I just stood there confused. Candy then introduced me to the man. "Lily, this is Pat. Pat, Lily." He extended his hand as a greeting. I extended mine to meet his. As my hand touched his, I suddenly became very lightheaded and dizzy. I started to hear various war cries of Native Americans preparing for battle, all at the same time. It was like they were trying to tell me something. I quickly pulled my hand back and covered my ears to drown out the noise, dropping my coffee in the process. And speaking of coffee, I'm gonna go make some right now. Hold on a sec. Okay, coffee's going. Back to the story. I began to shake and thrust my head all around, my long hair hitting Pat and Candy directly in the face. I began screaming like a lunatic as I ran out of the store. Once outside, the voices stopped. I put my hands down to my side and turned and gave a "what the hell" stare at the building. Both Candy and Pat came running to my side, asking if I was okay. Shaken and a little distraught, I asked Pat if anything weird ever happened here and if he knew anything about this land. He laughed a "you're not gonna believe it" laugh. He then invited Candy and I to have a seat in his bus so we could talk. That was the craziest looking thing I'd ever seen in my life, but the bus is a whole different story. Candy and I sat on the futon while Pat stood in the doorway. He proceeded to tell me about every single thing that happened here as much as he could remember. The chicken fryer incident, the body parts in the trash, that freak storm, the black shadows, something to do with a Pepsi truck, and many other things. He also said that he had a ghost hunting team investigate the store about 6 months ago. He's still waiting to find out what happened. Then, to top it all off, he told me this place is built on Indian burial grounds. I was in shock, horrified. Indian burial grounds? I thought to myself. Do you know how disrespectful that is? I was furious. I contemplated walking out right then and there, but a job's a job, and I really needed one. I thought of my grandmother and that quote she taught me many years ago. I decided that I might be able to help. I told Pat that I wasn't too happy with the store being built on burial grounds, and given the fact that I'm a Native American. He apologized, saying he didn't know. I accepted his apology and asked if it would be all right if I contacted my grandmother and asked her to come to the property and perform a seance to hopefully figure out why the spirits are so restless. Besides the obvious, of course. He smiled and graciously said yes. I contacted my grandmother and told her what was happening. She agreed to hold the seance the next Friday the 13th. I love those movies. I've got all 107 of them. I'm exaggerating, but there are a lot. Anyway, Friday finally came, and Candy and I drove to pick up my grandmother. My grandmother explained, as I loaded her equipment in the van, that she didn't know if the seance would work, given the language barrier, but she was willing to give it a try. This should be interesting, I thought. We arrived back at the store at about 11 p.m. Pat was already there. My brother showed up, unannounced, and offered to join us as a translator, as he's fluent in English and Cherokee. My father taught him when he was younger. Oh, wait, the coffee pot just beeped. I'll be right back. There's nothing like a fresh, hot cup of coffee on a cold winter's morning. And Candy's got me hooked on pumpkin spice. It's amazing, and she bought a ton of it last October. All right, where did we leave off? Oh yeah, so we unloaded the van and set up in the field behind the store. We set up the table first. It was round and had strange writings in it. So did the chairs. It was pretty creepy. We used the security light in the back of the store so we could see. My grandmother then put a homemade loaf of bread in the center of the table. I'm not sure why. She then surrounded the bread with 3 white candles, forming a perfect triangle, and lit them. She said that the spirit world is cold. The heat from the candles will help draw the spirits closer, as the spirits will seek out warmth from the flames. She also instructed us to turn off our cell phones to avoid distractions. Then, she explained our duties for the seance. She said that she will act as the medium, meaning she'll invite the spirits to join us, and allow them to communicate through her. If they choose to, she will also be the one to close the session when it's completed. My brother, as I said earlier, will translate the answers if there are any. I also read a list of questions in Cherokee that we wrote down earlier in English. Candy, Pat, and I were there as witnesses. We all joined hands around the table and began the seance. My cup's empty. I need a refill. Well, hold on. This time I used a gingerbread creamer. You know, variety is the spice of life. Anyway, my grandmother began by saying, "O great spirits that inhabit this land, we invite you to join us tonight. We offer you the gift of heat from these candles that sit before us. We offer you this bread to nourish your hunger for this world. Please come and speak to us." As she finished her invite, the wind suddenly stopped blowing, the crickets stopped cricketing, and the air became cold and heavy. After a few moments, she repeated her invite once again. This time, the flames from all the candles burst up about an inch like a flamethrower when you squeeze and release the trigger. Then they went back to normal. And Candy screamed and began to shake. "They're here, be quiet," my grandmother said. "Ask the first question." For the sake of this story, I'll tell you the questions that were asked in English, but when all this happened, it was spoken in Cherokee. My brother asked, "How long have you been here?" We heard rustling in the trees. We all turned our heads to look. The wind started blowing again, hard. So hard that it thrust our heads all around. We were all fighting to stay upright. Somehow the candle stayed lit, but the list of questions blew away. Through the whistling of the wind, we heard a disembodied voice saying, "Mani manus, mani munis." "Many moons," my brother said. "That means many moons. Holy crap. Ah, jeez." Candy began to cry at this point. I can't do this. I'm scared," she whined. "Calm down," my grandmother said. "We're safe as long as we hold the circle." She was wrong. Right then, an enormous gust of wind came through, blowing Pat's toupee completely off of his head, blowing the candles out, then picking the table up and slamming it directly into Pat's and my brother's faces, knocking them backwards out of their chairs and pulling Candy, my grandmother, and myself out of our chairs and directly on top of them. Blood was gushing out of Pat's nose like a water faucet as he lay there unconscious. My brother's head was bleeding as well, but he was awake and moaning. "Don't break the circle," my grandmother yelled. The tables and chairs that were lying on the ground began to levitate into the air and took flight and slammed hard into the back of the store and the security light, causing it to explode. Sparks went everywhere. It was now completely dark, and Candy was screaming at the top of her lungs. "Shut up!" I yelled at her, and she finally stopped and began whimpering like a wounded animal. Just then, a dim yellow light began to rise from the ground, through the grass, covering the entire field and 5 of us as well. The sound of tom-tom drums began echoing through the night, getting louder as each second passed. The ground started to shake, and transparent images of Native Americans began to rise. There were men, women, and children slowly rising from the dirt and grass. I got the feeling like I just walked through a spider web as I actually watched a spirit directly rise through my body. I watched as they rose through all of us. I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. My grandmother then screamed louder than I had ever heard her scream. "What do you want?" My brother mumbled the translation. Just as he finished his sentence, everything stopped. No more wind, no more drums, no more spirits rising on the ground. They were all standing around us now. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. Suddenly, we heard another several disembodied voices say, "Wes Wiggetti," over and over again at the same time. My brother began mumbling something that sounded like a word, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. "What, Somas? I can't understand you." He took a deep breath and said it once again. "Respect. They want respect," he said in a groggy voice. My grandmother then said, "I close this circle of communication and thank you all for joining us tonight. You may now break the circle." I immediately grabbed my phone out of my pocket and turned on the flashlight and went to go check on Pat. I shook him a couple of times and he woke up, completely unaware of the events that happened. Dazed and confused, he sat up slowly, the blood caked to his face. My grandmother and brother both sat up and said that they were okay. Candy, however, was lying in the fetal position, crying and shaking uncontrollably. I called 911 and said that there had been an accident and to send an ambulance. The ambulance arrived and tended to Pat. They called a second one for Candy. They gave Candy a mild sedative, loaded her in the back of the ambulance, and took her to the hospital for an overnight stay. She was released the following morning. Pat, however, was treated for severe head trauma and taken to the hospital and stayed there for a week and a half. He said he got a couple of the nurses' phone numbers, the dirty old man. Anyway, my brother had to drive my grandmother and I back home. And Candy picked up her van a few days later. Once Pat got out of the hospital, I called him and told him exactly what happened that night. I also asked if it would be possible to use that room off the back of the store as a memorial or tribute to the Native American community, for which I would have full control over. He graciously agreed. I contacted several people from my old reservation about donating items to the memorial, books, old Indian arrowheads, clothing, things of that sort. The response was overwhelming. I got a ton of stuff. They finally finished the store, as well as my memorial room, and the store opened back up soon after. The activity has died down a lot, so I've heard. You still see an occasional sighting or two around the store, but nothing too serious. I got my room organized, my mom helped me decorate, and I opened up soon after that. I hired one of the waitresses from the bar I used to work at to cover the night shifts. She's a friend of mine, so that works out well. My father, my brother, and several older people from the reservation often make random trips here to donate their time and taking pictures or answering questions that anyone might have. So, if you want to know more about the Native American culture, please stop by anytime or call 1-800-BARNABY, select option 3 for memorial. We're open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Saturday. There's no charge to enter, but donations are accepted. Oh yeah, we never did find Pat's toupee. My name is Jack Higgins. I never believed in ghosts until I came toe-to-toe with one. So, I set out on a journey to record what I once witnessed on the video. Along with my good friend, Rick Koff, and a guy we met at Taco Bell, Darren Baldwin. And together, we will travel to the most creepiest, craziest, and spookiest places in the state in an attempt to capture evidence of the paranormal. These are our ghost ventures. That was the intro to our ghost hunting web series. Yeah, I know, it sounds a lot like that other ghost hunting show on that cable network, but that's strictly coincidental. It's a good show. Well, at least it used to be. Anyway, hi, my name is Jack. I was the lead investigator for the Ghost Ventures crew. And if you noticed, I said was. We don't ghost hunt anymore. Hell, we don't even talk anymore. And I'll tell you why. Let me sum it all up in one word, and that word is Barnaby's. Yeah, that place is off the charts. Now, I've never been to Penhurst or Poveglia Island, but I've seen those episodes, and Barnaby's has got to rank right up there with those two. I mean, anyone that would step foot in that place, willingly, needs to have their head examined. Twice. We've done investigations at abandoned schools, run-down churches, a couple of cemeteries, and even fallen down dilapidated buildings. We've caught EVPs, felt phantom cool spots, and had some personal experiences, but nothing like what we experienced at Barnaby's. Now, as part of the agreement we made with Mr. Barnaby when we investigated that place, if anything weird or strange happened, we'd write them down in story form and give it to him, in exchange for letting us investigate the store for free. That place messed up my head so much that it took me 3 years and lots of therapy just to be able to even write this. But I will remember that night vividly until the day I die. So, here goes. I'll mail it to him later. I first found out about that place through a conversation with my neighbor. Apparently, my neighbor's daughter's ex-boyfriend's sister got a dog from a guy that used to work at the ASPCA and Barnaby's as well, but that's a different story. They became friends and he told her all about the crazy stuff that happened at Barnaby's. And she told her brother, he told my neighbor's daughter told her father, and her father told me. Did you follow all that? Good. Anyway, I did some research and found out that, yeah, there was a very old grocery store called Barnaby's, a few towns over. Newspaper articles revealed that all kinds of horrible events and freak accidents happened at that store, and that the store was built on old Indian burial grounds. That's what got me interested in investigating that place. Sure, we've investigated cemeteries before, but old Indian burial grounds, that's on a whole different level. I looked the place up on Google Maps, got a phone number, and the directions to the store. I called the phone number and talked to a very nice man named Pat, who graciously agreed to let us come and investigate his store that Saturday night at 9. And Pat agreed to meet us Saturday afternoon to do some interviews and to get some pictures to use in the show. I called Rick and Darren and told them that I found an old grocery store to investigate. I didn't mention the Indian burial ground thing. They were excited and looking forward to going. Saturday came, and Darren borrowed his aunt's minivan, as he always did, since none of us had a car. He picked up Rick, and we all met back at my house before heading to the store. We were in no way a professional ghost hunting team, and we didn't even have any real equipment like the big name teams do. We used our old iPhone 5s as cameras, using a night vision app, and also used it to capture EVPs. That's it. EVP stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon. It's believed to be the voices of spirits speaking to the living, maybe unintentionally, meaning a random word or phrase spoken for no apparent reason, or intentionally, such as someone asking a question and the spirit responds with an answer. But be careful, some spirits ain't nice. We all hopped in the van and made the hour drive to Barnaby's. Just as we were pulling into the parking lot, out of the corner of my eye, I saw 3 little Native American boys, about 8 or 9 years old, standing on the sidewalk outside the store. I turned around and told Rick to get a shot of that. He replied, "A shot of what?" I turned back around and they were gone. "No frickin' way, they were right there," I said, pointing to the sidewalk. "Who?" Darren asked. I just shook my head. "Never mind, forget about it," I mumbled. We parked the van and got out. If I knew then what I know now, I would have got back in that van and never stepped a single foot in that store. But I walked over to the spot where I saw the kids and found 3 small eagle feathers on the ground. At this point, I was already totally freaked out, so I just left them there. Rick and Darren went to knock on the door, and soon after, an old man emerged from inside the store and introduced himself as Pat. We all shook hands and introduced ourselves. I told Pat about the 3 kids that I saw, and he started tapping his toe and clapping his hands and said, "1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians." You know, that old children's nursery rhyme? Then he chuckled to himself. All right then, I thought. This guy's a few sandwiches short of a picnic. But anyway, we conducted our interview, and he told us about all the crazy things that happened there and gave us some history on the place. He also told us that the store was being remodeled and to be careful of hanging wires, loose floorboards, and things like that. And also that the electric had been shut off, since it was the weekend, and that the construction crews wouldn't be back till Monday. He offered to let us go inside and look around, to get familiar with the place, but we wanted to wait until our investigation, the element of surprise and all. We ended the interview at about 5 p.m., and he handed me a key to the store, just in case. We still had a couple hours before it was time for us to investigate, so we decided to go see a movie. We passed a movie theater on the way to the store, and we decided to head there. The new Stephen King movie was out. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I've got all of his movies, most of his books, and a lot of his short stories on audiobook. Anyway, we met a very nice and very attractive lady named Catherine at the movie theater. We told her that we were investigating Barnaby's that night and asked if she knew anything about the place. And she told us that she was the previous owner of the property, but that's a different story, and that now she was the assistant manager. Well, as soon as it opens back up again, we offered to have her come and investigate with us, but she declined, saying she didn't want to spend any more time in that place than she had to. Now I understand why. When the movie was over, we headed back to the store for our investigation. We arrived just as a thunderstorm was fast approaching, and Pat was nowhere to be found. I thought that was odd. We found a note on the door saying he had to tend to an issue at a property he just sold. The note also said that it was okay to start investigating. I pulled the key out of my pocket and took the note down, unlocked the door, turned the night vision apps on, and went to enter the building. Just as I opened the door, a loud lightning crash hit, lighting up the sky and scaring the hell out of all three of us. Heavy rain started falling soon after. We practically pushed each other into the store. Once inside, that place was creepy as hell. The air was thick and heavy, almost suffocating. The floor cracked every time you stepped on it, and half the walls were put up. The other half were just wooden beams, wires hanging from the ceiling and construction equipment laying everywhere. We walked around together for about an hour, just filming and getting a feel for the place. Nothing really happened. We found out that there were 3 main parts to the building: the sales floor, the back room, and a little room off the back room. The bathrooms were all boarded up. We couldn't even get in there. So, we decided that since there were 3 areas, and there were 3 of us, that we would investigate each area by ourselves. We did rock, paper, scissors to figure out who went where. Darren got the little room, Rick got the bathroom, and I got the sales floor. "All right, guys," I said. "Let's do this." We fist bumped each other and went to our designated areas. I began walking around the sales floor, filming and asking questions. I could hear Rick in the back room doing the same. This went on for about half an hour, when suddenly, another lightning strike went off, just as we heard Darren screaming at the top of his lungs, then the loud thumping of his work boots as he ran through the back room and out to the sales floor. "Oh, no, 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 no," he said loudly. Darren, stop! What happened?" Rick came running out shortly after. "What the hell, man?" Rick said. "You almost ran me over." Darren turned to look at Rick. You could tell that he was scared. "What happened?" I said again. I was in there, asking questions and panning the camera around the room when I saw an old Indian guy standing in the corner. I focused the camera on him and asked, 'Who are you?' He raised the tomahawk and charged at me. I thought he was going to kill me. I dropped my phone and got the hell out of there." "Wait a minute. What's that smell?" That scared the shit out of me. Darren said. Literally. Whoa, dude, you shit yourself? Rick said. Shut up, screw this. I'm out of here. I'll be in the van. He then stormed out the front door. I looked at Rick, and he looked at me. Just then, another loud lightning crash went off. I'll go get the phone, Rick said, as he ran off toward the back room. He returned shortly after and handed me the phone. It was still recording, and luckily, it wasn't broken. I stopped the recording, and we reviewed the video. And sure enough, there was an old Indian in the corner who charged at the camera. The phone then fell to the floor, face down, with the camera shooting upward. That same Indian was seen leaning over the lens, staring into the camera, and then just disappeared. We caught an EVP, but we couldn't understand what it was saying. What's up with the Indian? Rick asked. Yeah, maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, but this place is built on Indian burial grounds. What? Are you crazy? The cemeteries are one thing, but I ain't messing with no Indian spirits. Here's my phone. I'm out. Fine, I'll do it myself. The slamming of a door was heard soon after. I put both phones in my pocket and began to walk around, asking questions. I did this for about 15 minutes when another lightning strike hit and all the security lights came on, blinding me through the night vision. There's no electric in this place, I thought. What the hell is going on? The lights began to flash like a strobe light on crack. The entire building began to shake, causing me to fall back against a large piece of machinery, and a low humming sound could be heard that soon turned into what sounded like drumming. I began to hear Indian war cries in my head. Not my ears, but my head. I grabbed my head and screamed, "I ain't afraid of you." And suddenly, through the walls and floor, came transparent images of about 25 Native Americans on horses, screaming and swinging tomahawks at me. All right, now I'm afraid. They're trying to kill me. I could feel the breeze from the tomahawk swings as they barely missed my head. I screamed like a scared little schoolgirl and started running towards the door. I slipped on one of those loose floorboards and fell, face first to the ground, knocking myself unconscious. I woke up about 3 hours later, on the sidewalk somehow, and drenched from all the rain. It was 3:17 in the morning, the witching hour. The clock at the bank across the street told me that. I slowly got to my feet, looked over to my right, and saw the same 3 Indian boys standing there just like before. They were completely dry, even in the pouring rain. I screamed again and ran to the side of the building to get in the van, but it was gone. They left me there and I never saw those guys again. In retrospect, I don't blame them. Another lightning strike scared me half to death, so much that I began to run, screaming down the middle of the road. Thankfully, there were no cars out that late. I finally stopped running and screaming and called my neighbor. He was kinda upset, but he agreed to come get me. I waited across the street, at the bank, until he showed up. That was a fun ride home. Anyway, I mailed the key back to Pat. After that night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I kept thinking about were those Indians attacking me. I saw them everywhere that I went, out of the corner of my eye, at work, at the gym, even in my own home. I called a therapist about a week later, and I've been seeing her 3 times a week for the past 3 years. I didn't even look at any of the footage. I just threw all the phones away. And I never ghost hunted again. I just couldn't do it after that. I heard that Darren got a job as a camera operator for the UFC and is making a pretty good living at it. I heard that Rick took up plumbing, continued to ghost hunt, and put another team together, and got a sweet television deal on a cable network. Good for him. And me? Well, I just moved into my new apartment. My neighbor's name is Nick. But hey, that's a different story. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, Barnaby's is proud to present, from us to you, the one, the only, Santa Claus. That's right. Santa Claus will be here at Barnaby's December 21st through the 24th from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So, stop on by and visit Santa's little workshop located in the field right behind the store. Take home your free, that's right, free, picture of your child or yourself with Santa Claus. Bring yourself, bring your kids, bring your letters, and bring your lists. As always, we thank you for shopping at Barnaby's. Have a safe and happy holiday. What up, y'all? I'm Daryl. I work frozen food here at Barnaby's. I've been here almost a year now. I got hired on the same day that lady's necklace got caught up in the conveyor belt. Oof, but that's a different story. I'm also a part of SPLAT. It's something that Pat came up with. It stands for Sales and Promotions Live Announcement Team. There are 3 of us on the team: Mike, the grocery manager, Ricky from the dairy department, and myself. Since we're all comfortable speaking on the microphone. Here's how it works. Every day that each one of us is scheduled to work, we gotta take turns standing up at the front of the store and make announcements every 15 minutes for any products that are on sale that week or any special promotions that are going on within the store. Now, since Barnaby's is so old, we don't have a big fancy PA system. We have to stand up front, by the registers, with a megaphone, and make our announcement that way. It scares the little kids sometimes, but hey, I used to live in New York City, and I moved out about 10 years ago and tried to make it as a rap artist, but no one wanted to hear an old school rapper like me nowadays. It's all gangster rap. Anyway, the other day I was sitting in my car on break, listening to Bring the Noise by Anthrax and Public Enemy. I love that song. I like it better than the original. I'm a huge Public Enemy fan. I'm not a big heavy metal fan, but the song is dope. For those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, back in '91, the heavy metal band Anthrax got together with the rap group Public Enemy and did a rap metal version of the Public Enemy song, Bring the Noise. It was monumental. It opened up a whole new genre of music for bands like Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, and many others. You guys should really go check it out. Now, Ricky apparently heard me playing that song. He came over and started stomping in place and headbanging, screaming, "Not, not," right in front of my car. I just looked at him like he was crazy. What the hell is this fool doing? I thought. I got out of my car, mid-December, freezing my butt off, and yelled, Ricky, stop! What the hell are you doing?" "Man, I love Anthrax," he said. "My band covers some of their songs in our set. Play it again, man." "All right, but don't do that anymore. It's scary. Get in the car, man. It's cold out there." He got in and we started talking. As the song played, I came to find out he plays guitar in a heavy metal cover band. But that's a different story. I told him that I was a rapper, and he suggested that I meet the band and said that we should do our own rap metal song and make it about Barnaby's. "I'm down with that," I said. I just started writing my rap part of the song. You want to hear it? All right, and it goes a little something like this. B to the A-R-N, A to the B to the Y, my friend. We're Barnaby's grocery store. You'll pay less and get a whole lot more. You never know what's gonna happen. That's what makes it so exciting, you know? What they say about us being haunted, cursed, and all that stuff? Well, it's true, but what are you gonna do? We're the only store in town, and you gotta have food. That's all I got so far. It's kind of whack, but it's a work in progress. Anyway, enough about me. On with the story. Now, Pat is big on Christmas. And when I say big, I mean really, really big. Last year, and every year before, so I've heard, he would dress up like Santa Claus and hand out candy canes and take pictures with the kids and their parents in his little workshop out back. He also made everyone that worked here, at the time, dress up like elves, complete with the hat, red and white striped leggings, the vests, and little bell booties. Well, except for Catherine, the assistant manager. She dressed up like Mrs. Claus. Yeah, those two are like pencil and paper, if you know what I mean. They try to keep it on the down low, but it's obvious to everybody. Now, not everyone looks good in an elf suit. I, for one, look like Homie the elf, and Homie don't play that. But a job's a job, and Pat pays me bank, so I did what I had to do. On the other hand, some people look really, really good in an elf suit, like Lily. That, Native American woman that runs the memorial place out back? Yeah, I'd like to find her under my Christmas tree. Anyway, Pat had to have been collecting Christmas decorations since the 1940s or something. It was off the hook how much stuff he had. Plastic Santa Clauses, giant nutcrackers, blow-up reindeers on the roof, icicle lights, candy cane fences, snowmen that danced, and about 25 Christmas trees, all with different colored lights and ornaments, among many other things. If you named it, he's probably had it. There was stuff everywhere, outside and inside the store. There were wreaths hanging from the ceiling, garland draped over the registers, and Christmas bows on all the shopping carts. It was crazy. One of the former employees, Jimmy, the ASPCA guy, he knew a guy that ran a reindeer farm. He brought down 8 tiny reindeer and a little guy with a plastic red nose for the kids to pet and take pictures with. They were set up in a fenced-in area next to the workshop, and they also slept there at night. Jimmy slept with them. Now, I'm an animal lover myself, but that guy is on a whole different level. There was even a huge life-size nativity scene on the other side of the workshop. After all, that is the real reason for the season. And Pat would start the day after Thanksgiving and spend the next month setting it all up. He kept it all in 4 huge storage units down the street. That's how much stuff he had. He asked for volunteers, but most people volunteered before he even asked. Some people from town volunteered as well. I helped decorate the inside of the store. Those reindeers really creeped me out. They kept looking at me funny, like I was their dinner or something. Oh, no, homie gotta go, I said to myself. And Pat and the crew spent every day and night putting it all together in time for the big reveal. You could see the statues and decorations in the daytime, but wouldn't see the inflatables or lights until then. He even had several of those artificial snowmaking machines for the first time last year. He said he found them on the curb in someone's trash. He fixed them up and put them on the top of the roof, pointing in different directions so it would snow when the lights came on. There were wires and extension cords running everywhere, all connected to this huge industrial-sized surge protector with a long red and green striped handle with a plastic snowball on top, which was plugged into an outside electric socket. Now, the rest of the Splat team and I spent the entire month of December making announcements that the official lighting of Barnaby's would be December 23rd at 8 p.m. Everyone was truly excited. Reveal day came. Many customers, and people from town, as well as the neighboring towns, showed up for the event. It was mandatory for all Barnaby's employees to be there in our elf suits, so I was, along with everyone else. There were husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, girlfriends and girlfriends, and boyfriends and boyfriends. A lot of people even brought their dogs, dressed up as reindeers no less. And there were kids everywhere. So many showed up that Reggie, the town sheriff, had to block off the entire street. There were people standing in the road, on the grass of neighboring buildings, on the roof of their cars, and hanging out of windows. It was insane. Candy was selling coffee and hot chocolate in little Barnaby's coffee cups for $5 a shot, as well as Barnaby's hat, gloves, and scarf sets for $7 a shot. Ricky and his band were playing Christmas songs in the back of a flatbed semi-truck. Lily was handing out plastic candy canes that read, Mewy Coasimus. That's Cherokee for Merry Christmas, by the way. People were singing along and holding their lighters in the air and having a great time. I hadn't seen anything like that since the one time I went to Times Square to watch the ball drop on New Year's Eve. 8 o'clock finally came, and Mr. and Mrs. Claus came out of the front door of the store. Santa quieted everyone down using the megaphone. "Quiet, quiet, everyone," he said. The band stopped playing, and a hush fell over the crowd. "Mrs. Claus and I would like to thank each and every one of you for showing up here tonight. We especially want to thank all of the wonderful volunteers who helped make tonight happen. We hope you like it. Are you ready, Mrs. Claus?" "Ready, Santa," she replied. 10, 9. The crowd joined in. 8, 7. The drummer then joined, on beat, as everyone continued. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mrs. Claus then pulled the handle. Ugh, crap. I gotta make another announcement. Give me a minute. Now, where's that megaphone? Ah, got it. "Attention, Barnaby shoppers. Let me ask you something. Everyone knows to leave milk and cookies for Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. But what about Rudolph and the rest of the gang? I'm sure they'll be hungry too. Now, you may ask yourself, hey, self, what do reindeers eat? Well, here at Barnaby's, we have the answer. It's corn. No, not that 90s rock band corn. They wouldn't taste very good. It's fresh and delicious, wholesome corn on the cob. That's why, right now in our produce department, you can take home 5 ears of corn for just $1. That's right. Not 3, not 4, but 5 ears of corn for just $1. Man, you can't even buy a decent cup of coffee for $1 anymore. So, stop on by and pick up yours today and make Rudolph and the rest of the gang very happy, or they just might leave some unwanted presents on your front lawn, and you don't want that. I'm gonna go get mine right now. I'll see you there. As always, we thank you for shopping at Barnaby's. Have a safe and happy holiday." All right. Now that that's over with, back to the story. Mrs. Claus pulled the handle. Barnaby's lit up so bright that I swear you could see it from space. People began shielding their eyes from the light. It was that bright. Seconds later, they removed their hands from their eyes and started clapping and chanting, "Barnaby's, Barnaby's, Barnaby's." "Merry Christmas, everyone," Santa said. The crowd began pointing and smiling at all the different decorations as they began filtering onto the property, amazed at the sights as the snow machines created snow that filled the air. There were blinking multicolored lights boarding the entire building, as well as the doors and windows, and even the candy cane fence, the reindeer pen, and the nativity scene. A giant blow-up Santa and reindeer team on the roof, mechanical snowmen, various sized decorated Christmas trees, and even a film projector showing the claymation classics on the west side wall of the building, among other things. Ricky and the band began playing more Christmas songs as Santa and Mrs. Claus began mingling with the crowd. It was quite a presentation. I was impressed, and I don't impress easily. Everything was going great, until suddenly, several loud bangs were heard, one right after the other, hushing the crowd and stopping everyone in their tracks. Thick black smoke and sparks began to pour out of snow machines as they began to shake and shoot large chunks of ice directly into the crowd. And people began running for their lives and screaming. Ricky and the band hopped in the cab of the truck to take cover. Jimmy let the reindeer out of the pen, and I kid you not, they all began to fly through the air and landed on the roof of the bank across the street. Jimmy ran into the woods behind the store. Candy hid behind the empty propane tank at the back of the building next door. I hid behind Pat's big Barney bus and peeked my head around to see what was going on. Several people got hit in the head and face with the ice chunks, causing them to fall to the ground, dead, as the crowd trampled over their bodies, blood pouring right from their skulls. Several teenagers grabbed the large candy canes and began to play baseball, hitting the ice chunks in all different directions. What the hell is wrong with these people? The baseball game was short-lived, though, as the speed of the chunks rapidly increased and overtook the players. They quickly ran for cover. And just then, every single snow machine exploded at the same time, shooting large pieces of burning hot metal and flames into the air. The metal pieces came soaring through the sky, like frisbees on speed, slicing, cutting, and severing people's arms, legs, and heads. Mangled bodies, severed body parts, and blood was everywhere. One guy got hit directly between the eyes and cutting halfway through his skull. He looked like something out of a punk rock concert. Blood began pouring out as he fell, face first to the ground, knocking over a mechanical reindeer and driving the piece of metal completely through his skull. It was so disgusting. The flames caught the blow-up Santa on fire as well as all the other decorations on the roof. The decorations began falling down, landing on the ones on the ground, and catching them on fire as well. The fire spread quickly until every direction, ornament, and tree was engulfed in flames, as well as the dead bodies that lay on the ground. And let me tell you, the smell almost made you want to puke. And some people did. The smell of burning plastic and burning flesh is a smell you will never forget. The fire consumed everything, except for the nativity scene. The fire seemed to go completely around it, like it was protected by some invisible shield or something. And maybe it was. Someone somewhere must have called the fire department as they showed up and put the fire out before it could reach the woods out back. It took them about 45 minutes to do so, and the police arrived to help control the crowd and take statements and send everyone home. The ambulances arrived and tended to the injured, and the coroner came to remove the dead bodies and body parts. 27 people died that night. Thankfully, all the employees, Mr. and Mrs. Claus, and all the reindeer were accounted for. They had to get a large crane from the construction site down the street and a large animal harness from a neighboring farm to get the reindeer off the roof. Ricky and the band climbed out of the cab of the truck and stared at all the damage. Ricky screamed out, Rock and roll, dude. Everyone just stared at him as he slowly walked away. Candy climbed out from under the propane tank, found Lily, and they just left. Jimmy ran back from the woods and helped remove the reindeer from the roof. I went to the bar in my elf suit and had a drink. All right, I'm lying. I had a lot of drinks. The following morning, Christmas Eve, Pat, Candy, Catherine, Ricky, Lily, and myself, as well as many other employees and townspeople, came to the store to assess the damage and clean up the mess. Pat just stood there in shock, mumbling to himself. I kind of felt bad for him. We all gave him a group hug, and that brought him back to senses. Now, to everyone's surprise, except Pat's, the store was fully intact. Everything except the doors and windows. The inside of the store was, for the most part, untouched. Pat then explained that that's the reason he decided to leave the store an all-brick building with a flame-retardant roof and flame-resistant siding on Lily's memorial room. Bricks don't burn. We replaced the windows and the doors in no time, thanks to Bob from the hardware store down the street. We cleaned up the trash and debris around the property and put it all in heavy-duty trash bags and tossed it in the dumpster next door, with permission, of course. Pat then sent everyone home to spend time with their families and reopened the store, December 26th at 7 a.m. This year, several employees, including myself, and many of the townspeople gave some of our Christmas decorations to Pat to help rebuild his collection. It's nowhere near what he used to have, but you gotta start somewhere. So, if you would like to donate any of your Christmas ornaments and decorations to the store, please send them to Barnaby 666, Dead Man's Lane, Nowhere, USA. Dang, it's time for another announcement. I gotta go, y'all. Merry Christmas. I can fix it. I can fix anything, even if I can't. That's what I tell myself, and everyone else, as a matter of fact. Hi, I'm Bill. I'm the maintenance guy here at Barnaby's. I used to be a fire marshal a few towns over, but I resigned shortly after investigating a fire that happened here years ago. 2 days before Christmas. But that's, never mind, you get the idea. I became totally obsessed with this place after that. I would purposely drive out of my way on my way to work just to drive by here. On my days off, I would park my car in the parking lot of the bank across the street and just stare at this building for hours. I'd even dream about it at night. It was really bizarre. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a professional dance skater, like the people you see in old school rap videos from the 70s, or on street corners dancing on roller skates. Yeah, I wanted to do that for a living. But sometimes life has other plans. Now I just hang out at the local roller rink every weekend, Monday and Tuesday nights, as well as Friday nights. The music nowadays kind of sucks, but at least you can dance to it. Kind of. Let me tell you something. I decided to stop by the store one day for some Band-Aids, gauze pads, and peroxide. Some say I'm accident-prone. I don't really see it, though. I talked to Pat, the owner, and he said he was looking for a maintenance guy. I thought, here's my opportunity, as I am fully trained in plumbing and electrical. Yeah, right. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just wing it most days. Don't tell Pat, though. He agreed to hire me on, and I resigned from my fire marshal position the same day. It's a lot less money, but there's something about this place. It's like I belong here. Now, as the maintenance guy, I'm responsible for making sure all the cooler cases, lighting units, roll-up doors, deli slicers, ovens, and fryers among many other things, are all in working condition. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. What about that chicken fryer incident? That was not my fault. If that guy hadn't have accidentally dropped his fountain drink full of ice into the fryer when he was turning it off, that would not have happened. Melanie didn't tell you that in her story, did she? What was he doing with a fountain drink by the fryer in the first place? We're not allowed to eat or drink in prep areas. Anyways, I'm not supposed to mess with the heating units, the air conditioning systems, or the ventilation systems, because I'm not HVAC certified. But that doesn't stop me. I like to push a few buttons every now and then, just to see what happens. Now, for those of you that don't know what HVAC stands for, wait a minute. I don't even know what it stands for. Give me a minute, let me look it up on my phone. Got it. It stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Apparently, you gotta be trained to work on those things. Yeah, right, I ain't got time for all that. Now let me tell you something else. As I'm sure you know, Barnaby's is a very old store. And we ain't got one of those nice fancy digital temperature-controlled water heaters like the big-name stores do. No, we still have a boiler. That's right, a boiler in the basement. Yeah, there's a basement. It's not a full-size basement, though, more like a 10 by 20-foot room below the store. The entrance to the basement is between both the bathroom doors by the cash office at the front of the store. And hey, if you don't know the difference between a water heater and a boiler, look it up yourself. I got a story to tell. Now, the basement's off limits to the normal employees, but not me. I've never been normal, and I like it that way. But seriously, only Pat, myself, and the HVAC guys are allowed down there. Oh man, the basement is creepy as hell. I love it. It's cold, dark, musty, noisy, and smells like decaying mice and foot sweat. Yeah, I told you I wasn't normal. The walls are made of cinder blocks, the floor is made of exposed concrete, and the ceiling is made of metal with various sized water pipes running along it that leak on occasion. There's the boiler, all the compressors, fuse boxes, and a fold-out cot down there. Why a fold-out cot, you ask? Well, you see, I live in the basement. It's really not that bad once you get used to the noise and the smell. I have electric and heat. There's a laundry tub with a working water faucet for when I need to wash up in a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it, for when I have to use the bathroom late at night when the stores are closed and the alarms are on. I've got a microwave, a coffee pot, a CD player, and a portable DVD player. Plus, I live at a grocery store, so I've got all kinds of food whenever I want, as long as I pay for it on payday. It was about 5 years ago, on a Tuesday, at the end of August, around 2:30 p.m. I was down in the basement on break, crocheting a blanket from my mom. Hey, don't laugh. Rosie Greer does needlepoint, and he was the fiercest linebacker in the NFL at one time. You wouldn't laugh at him, would you? Anyway, I was crocheting the blanket and boogieing down to Time Life's greatest disco hits of the 70s. I love disco music. Casey and the Sunshine Band, Donna Summers, the Village People, just to name a few. And disco is gonna make a comeback one day. Just wait and see. My favorite disco song ever is Disco Duck by Rick Dees. I'm listening to it right now. Go ahead, look it up. It's on YouTube. Now, I was down in the basement getting down when suddenly I heard several loud bangs that sounded like metal slamming against concrete. I looked behind me and saw the boiler dancing across the floor. Holy jumping Jesus on the dance floor. It's gonna blow. I threw the blanket and ran up the stairs as fast as I could. I burst through the basement door, onto the sales floor and screamed, "The boiler's gonna blow! Everybody run!" People began screaming and running for their lives. Some lumberjack-looking guy came hopping out of the bathroom as he tried to pull his pants up. He had pink, lacy women's underwear on with little hearts on them. Wow, you don't see that every day, I thought. I knew the boiler was going to blow at any second, and the front door was blocked by people trying to leave. So I ran as fast as I could and did a safe hat third slide to register 8, then crawled underneath to try and shield myself from the blast. I could see through a small crack in the metal. I watched as both bathrooms and the cash office exploded as the boiler exploded upwards from below, knocking out the power and sending the store into complete darkness. The security lights came on seconds later, and they run off a generator out back. Scalding hot, boiling water, bricks, pieces of toilets, sinks, urinals, and large chunks of metal and wood flew through the air, as well as all the money in the cash office. The sound of car alarms and blood-curdling screams were heard soon after. Luckily, Candy, Catherine, and Pat were all on a coffee run at the time, so the office was empty. You see, we didn't have a safe at the time. We kept all the money locked up in a large wooden cabinet. Yeah, we got one now, though. Several people were hit by the explosion, sending their severely burned and mutilated bodies and body parts flying through the air as well, landing on displays, shelving, and the floor. Large pieces of wood and metal slamming down onto their bodies and killing those that weren't dead already. As the scalding hot, boiling water poured down, several others began to reach and dive for the falling money. They began to scream in pain as they fell victim to their greed. The water landed on their faces, hands, and clothing. Their skin began to bubble and liquefy as they fell to the floor, their clothes melting to their bodies, until there was nothing left but a mound of colored goo and blood on the floor. That vision will forever haunt me in my dreams. I can still hear their screams, even in the daytime. Now, let me tell you something. I've seen a lot of burn victims as a member of the fire department, but I've never seen anything like this before. 23 people died that day. Luckily, all the employees were accounted for. As the water slowly diminished, I crawled out from under the register, unharmed. I'm not gonna lie, I grabbed a few handfuls of cash as I stood to check for any of the survivors. I used it to buy a new pair of roller skates and a couple of outfits like Tony Manero wore in my all-time favorite movie, Saturday Night Fever. You know, John Travolta's character. No? Oh, come on, work with me here, people. But as I stood up, I saw about 20 people, including several employees, standing there staring at the damage. I turned to my left and saw directly out into the street. The whole left corner of the building was gone, and there was a huge gaping hole in the floor. Sunlight pouring in from outside. Through the opening, I could see damaged cars, dead bodies, and body parts laying on the grass, the sidewalk, and in the road. One guy's body was up in the tree, with a toilet seat covering his face. That's a real crappy way to go. Dust and debris was everywhere, and people were screaming and crying as the car alarms blared away. I walked out of the front door, which was still intact, the explosion missing it by mere inches. Some customers walked out with me, others went to tend to the injured in the store. Now what I saw on that street looked like a war zone. Cars turned over on their sides, windows blown out, large pieces of metal and wood, as well as what used to be toilets, sinks, and urinals embedded in the road, the sidewalk, and the landscape. Some with body parts sticking out of them. The entire roof section of the store was hanging off the side of the roof of the bank across the street. More dead bodies lay scattered all around, some alive, some dead. People were actually fighting. Well, more like pushing and shoving each other to the ground to get the remaining money. It was devastating. Pat, Catherine, and Candy were just returning from their coffee run. I ran over to Pat and told him what happened. He just stood there in shock for a while. He finally snapped out of it, and we all went to help the injured. and Pat started grabbing all the money he could off the ground as he made his way there. And someone, somewhere, must have called the police, as they showed up minutes later with the fire department and several ambulances and the coroner. Reggie blocked off the street, the EMTs tended to the injured, as I and several members of the fire department went to check the structural stability of the building. Yeah, I know, normally I wouldn't be allowed to go inside a damaged building since I'm not part of the fire department anymore, but they let me go for old time's sake. Once they decided that the building was safe, the coroner then removed all the bodies and the body parts in the store and on the street and left. The ambulances loaded up as many of the seriously injured people as they could, and then left for the nearest hospital, then came back for the less injured. After we exchanged a few high fives and had some small talk, the fire department left as well. Reggie and his deputies took our statements and they left too. Pat and the rest of the employees, including myself, spent the next 7 hours cleaning up what was left of the store as best we could. Pat sent Catherine to get several huge tarps and rope from one of his storage units down the street to cover the hole in the building. Now let me tell you something else. It took 4 days for the town's cleanup crew to clean up all the debris, blood and water and damaged vehicles from the street. It took 6 months and almost $100,000 to repair the damages to the store, the sidewalks, the road, and the landscape. Thanks to Barnaby's being a historical landmark, Pat didn't have to pay anything. The town took care of it all. But that's Bob from the hardware store came by the next day and built a security wall within the store so no one would fall in the hole, and so repair crews could work and the store could be open at the same time. Thanks, Bob. We had 2 porta potties out back to use as restrooms. Produce, deli, and the meat room all washed their trays and pans at the funeral home next door. They were nice enough to let us use their cleaning facilities. Ugh. Now, although Pat did decide to get a huge steel safe, you'd think he would have put in one of those fancy water heaters as well. But no. I want to keep this place as original as possible, he said. Now, I don't know where he found this thing, but you guessed it. He put in another boiler. So, here I sit, down in the basement, with this creepy boiler lurking over my shoulder, listening to disco, crocheting my mom another blanket, and telling you this story. Hey, what time is it? Oh, Mamma Mia in a short bus, I gotta get dressed. Where's my suit? Where's my skates? I gotta go, people. It's disco night at the roller rink, and it's time to get my boogie on. Later, Tater. We're live in 3, 2... Hey, everyone. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you this special news bulletin. This is Stanley Stuckup, coming to you live from the newsroom. Another violent, horrific event has happened here at Barnaby's grocery store. Joining us now is Barbara, our field reporter in the field, to give you an update as to what happened. Hey, Barbara, are you there? Barbara? We can see you, Barbara. Quit fixing your hair and pick up the microphone. Are we live? Yeah, Barbara, we're live. We have been for the last 15 seconds. And don't get snippy with me, Stanley, just 'cause the baby's yours. Anyway, hi. This is Barbara Bubblehead, reporting to you live from Barnaby's grocery store. Excuse me, can I get an interview? Am I on TV? Yes, we're live. Hi, Mom. Can you tell us your name? I'm Sam. I'm the scan analyst here at Barnaby's. So you work here? No, I just put on this ugly uniform all day and hang around, just for fun. What? Never mind. Yeah, I work here. Oh, did you see what happened? See it? I was part of it. Wow, can you tell us what happened? Oh, I think my water just broke. I gotta go. And take the microphone, look into the camera, and tell them everything. Stanley, I'm gonna get you for this. Okay, well, here goes. As I said, my name is Sam. I'm the scan analyst here at Barnaby's. Yeah, you got me. Scan analyst is just a glorified name for price checker. I'm in charge of making sure that all the pricing for all the items in the store is correct. I'm in charge of grocery, HBA, frozen food, dairy front-end candy, and tobacco, plus all the vendor items. I have to make sure that the little white price stickers that the employees put on the items match the price in my price book that Pat gives me every week, and that they both match the little white sticker on the shelf. Produce, deli, and the meat room all have their own pricing systems, so they take care of their own. Yeah, I know. Barnaby's is a very old store. And guess what? We have to handwrite all the prices on all the tags for all the items. My hands hurt so bad by the end of the day. When I was little, I wanted to be a marine biologist, but as I grew up, I developed ichthyophobia, which, you guessed it, is the fear of fish. The way they swim underwater with no arms or no legs. Oh, and those beady little eyes? Ugh. I can't even go into the fish section of a pet store without freaking out. Hell, I had trouble watching Finding Nemo, for God's sake. And that's a cartoon. But you don't really care about all that. So let me tell you what happened. It was about 5:45 this morning. Pat and I met at the coffee shop across the street, like we always do. We take turns buying coffee for each other. I take mine with cream and sugar, and he takes his black. Ugh, it's nasty. I don't know how people do it. But hey, we got our coffee and made our way to the store at around 6 o'clock. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are they heading to the store at 6 if it doesn't open till 7? Well, the store doesn't open to the public until 7. And Pat and I usually go in early and to get a head start on things we have to do for the day. He does paperwork and payroll, while I start my price checks. Sometimes other employees come in early as well, for cleaning or to get a head start during holidays or days we know we're going to be busy. And today was a normal day. Well, it was supposed to be. We arrived at the store, got out of our cars, and started walking towards the building. From out of nowhere came this guy, about 6 feet tall, dressed in all black, with a black ski mask covering his face. I gasped and stood there frozen in fear. He walked up to Pat, who didn't seem fazed at all, and asked, "What time do you open?" 7 o'clock, Pat said. Then, with lightning speed, the guy pulled a handgun out of the waistband of his pants and put it to the back of Pat's head and said, "You open now. Get inside, both of you. Lock the door." I was shaken, crying and scared to death at this point. "Shut up," he screamed at me. We walked in the store with only the security lights to see by. The motion detectors kicked in and turned all the lights on and turned the security lights off. It startled all of us. "Get on your knees and don't move," he told us. We did what we were told. Waving the gun back and forth between the both of us, he screamed, "Where is the money?" "The cash office. It's in the cash office," Pat said nonchalantly. "Get up. Let's go. And don't you move," he said, looking at me, "or I'll put a bullet in his head." I stayed right where I was. They walked back to the cash office, went inside, and came back out a few minutes later. The guy was holding a blue bank deposit bag, which I assumed was the money, still holding the gun to Pat's head. "Turn around," he told Pat. And Pat turned, and as he did, the guy stepped back, raised the gun, and said, "Have a nice day." Then, bang, Bang, bang. 3 shots directly into Pat's chest. Pat stumbled back, hitting the wall and sliding down into a sitting position, then falling over to his right. Blood poured out of his chest and all over the floor as he struggled to breathe. I screamed as he took his last breath. Pat was dead. The guy ran to go out the front door, but slammed headfirst into it. He ran headfirst into a locked door. Now that I think about it, that shit was funny. The idiot. And then he stumbled back, holding his head. Just then, Lily, the Native American woman that runs the place out back, came in early, saw everything, and screamed as well. The guy turned and fired 2 more shots in her direction, but luckily he missed. Lily began screaming, "Haliwi, Haliwi," which I later found out is Cherokee for help. And all of a sudden, every single light in the store went out. A single gunshot and the clicking of an empty gun was heard soon after, and I knew he was out of bullets. I went to get up, but quickly changed my mind, because just then, the sound of tom-tom drums filled the air as an intensely bright white ball of light began to glow above Pat's dead body and illuminated the area where we were as well. "What the fuck?" I heard the guy say. He threw the gun and screamed like a little girl repeatedly as he fumbled with the lock, trying to get it open. A dim yellow light began to rise from the ground behind him. The light quickly spread to cover the entire floor as transparent images of Native Americans popped up, stomping in places and clapping, and rose from it. The drums were getting louder as the chanting began. The sound was nearly deafening. Lily screamed that word over and over again. The guy's entire body then began to convulse while he struggled with the door, then snapped a 180-degree turn like it was spun around by an unseen force and slammed back hard against the door. Several whooshing sounds were heard as arrows from all directions suddenly appeared out of thin air and shot directly into the guy's chest, stomach, arms, and legs, one right after the other. A few arrows hit his groin area, as well as his face, both eye sockets, and his mouth as he screamed. Blood was oozing from every hole. His bloody, arrow-covered body then fell face first to the ground, driving the arrows completely through his body and out the other side. He looked like a human pincushion. The Native American images then stopped stomping all at once and just stood there. The drumming stopped. The chanting stopped. It was dead silent. The bright white ball of light then began to pulsate very fast, like a turn signal about to blow. It then shot directly into Pat's blood-soaked body. His body then lit up so brightly that I had to cover my eyes to shield them from the light. After a few seconds, a loud bang was heard, like the sound of a sonic boom, causing the entire floor to shake, knocking over displays and the green M&M stand-up cardboard cutout that we had by the front registers. After the shaking stopped, every light in the store came back on, and the images disappeared. I sat there with my hands covering my face, shaking and crying. Lily came running out from the back room to make sure I was okay. She helped me up, and we made our way to the front door. I put my hand at the right side of my face, blocking my vision so I wouldn't have to see Pat's dead body. We had no choice but to step in the blood of the guy as we got to the front door, unlocked it, and prepared to leave. Just as we were about to walk out the door, we heard a low moaning sound. We looked to our right and saw Pat. He was moving. He was alive. No bullet holes, no blood, no nothing. Like it never happened. He sat up and began to pat his chest, and then looked at us in total confusion. We both ran to him, hugged him, and helped him up off the floor. What happened? I'll explain it later. Let's get the hell out of here. We unlocked the door, and Pat, accidentally, on purpose, kicked the guy in the head as he grabbed the bloody bank bag, and we all stepped outside. There were customers waiting for the store to open. I'm sorry, folks. Barnaby's is closed today. The crowd dispersed as Lily called the police from her cell phone. We walked over to the coffee shop across the street, and I bought Pat the biggest cup of coffee they had. After what he's been through, he deserved it. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later with a couple of ambulances in the corner. We walked back into the store when they arrived. The EMTs tended to Pat, Lily, and myself, and found nothing physically wrong with any of us. Pat was physically dead less than an hour ago from 3 gunshot wounds to the chest, and now he's perfectly fine. They saved his life, I thought. I've got a new respect for Native Americans, let me tell you. Anyway, the coroner loaded up the guy's body, arrows and all, then left. The cops took our statements and left, and so did the EMTs. Pat called Steven to come in and clean up the mess. He's waiting inside for him to show up. Lily went to go open her place. And I was walking to my car so I could leave as well, when that blonde lady asked to talk to me. So, that's what happened. Back to you, Stanley. Stanley? Are you there, Stanley? Oh, yes, I'm here. I'm on the phone with Barbara. We're having a boy. I gotta get to the hospital. I gotta go. Goodbye, everyone. And we're out. Hey, everybody. Nightmares Nightly here. I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for listening. And if you'd like to help the channel out, leave a like, comment, and share this video with someone you think might like it. And a big thank you to the author of this story, the mind of Mikey, aka Mikey Z. And as always, thanks for listening, everybody.